Now to get us started with our portraits of Judy Hopps, she's going to start with a basic shape, and the shape's going to be a circle here. Now we want to go ahead and save room for those really tall ears that she has, and I'm going to start towards the bottom of my paper, and we want to draw in a circle, I'd say about the size of a baseball, or an orange is a good size here as well. And as you can see here, I'm just keeping this circle very light, really rough and sketchy. Just really building up my circle with lots and lots of curved lines. Now, once you've got your shape in place, the next steps we need to add in are what we call guidelines to help us place in some of Judy's features here. And so we're going to go to the top of our circle, and we're going to lightly sketch down a vertical guideline to show us that Judy's going to be facing towards us here. Then about 2/3 of the way down towards the bottom of our circle, we want to lightly sketch across a horizontal guideline here. And this line is going to help us placing in Judy's eyes. Now, when it comes to adding in her ears here, we're going to go ahead and sketch in just 2 more light guidelines. And so I'm going to go right to the middle of where our 2 guidelines cross. And I'm going to stretch up this very steep letter V. Now, this is going to give us that rough angle for where we want to place in her ears here. And this will give us our basic foundation for Judy Hopps, but it looks nothing like her. With this foundation in place though, this is where we can really start to build up the rest of Judy's head. And so we're going to go ahead and start to get add in her little bunny cheeks here. And so I'm going to go from the side of my circle, and just right between our guideline, I'm going to lightly build up the sides of her cheeks by adding in these very curvy letter L's. And I'm going to go ahead and keep these very light at first, just so I can make sure that I have the cheeks the same size here on each side. And so once you got these L shapes in place, this is where we can go back to the rest of her head, and we can go ahead and really darken this in all the way around here. Now, I don't know if any of you folks play video games, but I like to think of the shape of Judy Hopps' head kind of like we just drew in a Goomba from Super Mario. But I probably shouldn't say that because we don't own them yet. Coming for you, Universal. Once you got her head shape really nice and dark, when it comes to building up her ears here, I like to think of the shape of her ears as a couple of baseball bats, or if you're hungry, you can think of these as breadsticks as well. And so I'm going to go ahead and go from my guideline here, and I'll roughly sketch out this ear, just so you can see that rough kind of breadstick shape. But her ears are going to be wider at the ends here. And so I'm actually starting this off, just stretching out a couple of diagonal lines. Then as I start to reach the top here, I'm going to round this off at the top, really just soften this up with a little hill here. Now when Disney was doing their research for Zootopia, when it came to sending some of their animators on a research trip, they actually sent some of their artists to Kenya. And it was on this trip to Kenya where they studied a lot of the animals that they included in this film, really studied how they walk and their behavior as well. Now, in addition to that trip to Kenya though, they actually had a wildlife expert bring some of these animals into the studio as well. Very much a tradition that they did when Disney was working on Bambi. They had a lot of live animals in that film. And actually, The Lion King as well. They did that same thing too. Now, once you've got the shapes of her ears lightly sketched in here, on the insides, she does have a little fold to her ears. And so we want to go to the bottom of the ear here, and to add in that little fold next, we're going to sketch in just a very steep letter V, right towards the bottom of each ear here. Now, if you've seen this film, one of the things that Judy Hopps hates being called is cute. And so when it came to her character design here, what the concept artist added in to make her look a little bit more edgy, they just added in a little black tip to the tops of her ears here. And so once you've got these folds in place, we're just going to go to the inside of the ear here, and I'm going to add in a little rainbow to give myself that black tip to each ear here. Now, speaking of edgy, when it came to coming up with Judy Hopps' name for this film, she was actually based off of a character from a late 1980s show, 21 Jump Street. She was based off of Judy Hopps. Judy Hopps from that TV series. Now, as we go back into shade in the black tips here, we don't want Judy to be just a floating head kind of sitting here on the paper. I'm going to go ahead and give her just a bit of her neck and her shoulders here next. And so to add in that neck of hers, I'm gonna go to the bottom of her head. And from this center guideline, we're gonna add in just a curvy letter V right in the middle here. And to give her that collar to her police uniform, we're gonna go to the ends of that letter V, and I'm gonna stretch down just a little curve here on each side, really just turning this into a capital letter M. And we want to go ahead and close off the bottom of her collar by going right between our letter M here and just connecting it together with a stretched out letter D. Now that we've got the collar in place, to add in just a little bit of her shoulders, you want to go to the sides of that collar and just add in a small diagonal line here on each side. Now, since her collar to her uniform is a darker gray than the rest of her fur, if you want to add in some shading, you're more than welcome to go back in here. Just really shade this in nice and soft on the inside. And this will pretty much give us what we call our silhouette for Judy. She's definitely looking a little bit more familiar now. And so when it comes to giving our rabbit her face here, we're going to start by adding in her snout, the lower half here. And so I'm going to go right to the middle of my two guidelines. And I'll start this neck shape nice and light, but to build up her snout next, we're going to go ahead and sketch in a little circle sitting right at the bottom of her head. And we'll go ahead and keep the circle still very light, very sketchy. This is going to act as a little barrier for everyone to keep her nose and that smile of hers. And so once you got this circle in place, to add in Judy's nose next, we're going to go to the top of our light circle, and on the inside here, I'm going to add in just a very small letter U. And I like to think the shape of Judy Hop's nose, kind of like we're drawing in this very tiny boomerang. And so I'm going to go right below that first U shape, follow that same curve down, really adding in this little boomerang there. Now, even though she is a rabbit, she does share a similar feature to dogs and cats. One of those being that little line, that little split that dogs and cats have below their nose. And so once you've darkened in the nose here, we'll go ahead and darken in just a little bit of that center guideline. Then when it comes to building up her smile, from right below the split now, we'll go ahead and stretch out a letter U on each side of that circle. And so all together, this should look like we just drew in this very curvy letter W. And you're more than welcome to keep her smile just like this. But if you want to make her smile a little bit cuter here, what I like to do is go to the tops of that letter W and add in some smile lines. Just a couple of rainbows on each side to show us that her cheeks are being pushed up as she smiles nice and big here. And with that smile in place, that pretty much gives us all we need for the lower half of Judy. Now, before we start to wake up our rabbit with her eyes though, Judy here has what we like to call a character mask. That's going to be a little lighter shaded gray that wraps around her eyes. And so we'll start her character mask here by going right on this horizontal guideline. And I'll go ahead and build up the tops of our mask first by adding in a little couple of candy canes, one on each side. Now, Judy's voice was done by the very talented Jennifer Goodwin. Now, you may recognize Jennifer as she's known for playing Snow White in the Once Upon a Time series. If you're a big fan of the Tinkerbell films, she voices Fawn the Fairy in those movies. Now, when it came to recording her lines for Judy here, what I think is pretty wild is that Jennifer actually said in her interview, whenever she went into work to voice Judy Hopps, she purposely wore tennis shoes every day. And whenever she was in the sound booth, she actually hopped around like crazy in the sound booth, just to kind of feel like a rabbit, just like Judy Hopps. Once you've got those candy canes in place, what I did here is just thickened up the top of that candy cane a little bit more to give Judy some nice simple eyebrows. And make sure you go back around a couple times, thicken them up too. No, she's not a product of the 90s. She doesn't have those pencil thin brows. With the brows though in place, when it comes to adding her eyes next, she has your typical Disney princess kind of shapes to her eyes. Very much similar to a lot of our 3D princesses like Rapunzel, Elsa, Anna. Very much these very big almond shapes to her eyes here. And so we're going to build up her eyes now by going right on the inside of that character mask. And I'll build up the top of her eyes first by adding in just a couple of smaller candy canes right on the inside. But if you're looking at these curves and thinking to yourself, oh my gosh, Darren, I don't know if I even want to attempt to draw in her eyes, you're more than welcome to keep the curves just like this. And just say that Judy's smiling super big, that her eyes are closed. I got a little kawaii Judy here. If you really want to give her that almond shape to the eye, you want to go right between that candy cane and just connect it together at the bottom with this very subtle letter U here. And once you got these almond shapes in place, when it comes to adding in her eyelashes, you just want to go to the corners of her eyes and just thicken up the corner of each eye here. Now we don't want to leave Judy like this though, otherwise she's going to look like she's seen some things in Zootopia. She definitely has, especially when the animals get hit with the night howlers. And so when it comes to waking her up with those pupils, you can really have her looking any way you like, up, down, cross-eyed, maybe added some hearts, stars, that iconic carrot pen that she carries around. Before you keep her nice and classic, just right on the inside of each eye here, I'm drawing in just a couple of smaller circles, one for each pupil. And since the eyes are really where we as the audience connect with our characters, I like to go back in, push down just a bit harder on my pencil, and I'll bring all of that attention to focus, just right to the middle of her eyes here. Now, once you got Judy really nice and awake, if you do want to add in some shading to your rabbits, since she is that lighter gray, what I recommend here is kind of just taking the Saturn pencil, really using it as a crayon, and you just want to shade in that area right around her character mask, and also right around that small circle that we added in for her snout. Now, one of my favorite things about the world of Zootopia is that when the animators were developing this world for the film, they very much wanted it to be kind of reminiscent of our own world. And so if you look really closely at some of the buildings and the kind of the stores in Zootopia, very much stores that we're familiar with. When it comes to shopping for clothes, they shop at Urban Snoutfitters. When it comes to their daily essentials, my favorite store, they shop at Targoats. When it comes to traveling around, some animals travel around in Zoobers. And their big pop star, Gazelle, is a playoff of Adele, even though she's voiced by Shakira. There's kind of these little things that we know they wanted to include in this one too. But once you've got that shading in place, that's going to be the last step that you need for your sketches of your bunny here. But really the last mark any artist truly needs to leave on their work before it's complete though, are going to be your signatures. So make sure you do find a spot somewhere next to your drawing. And go ahead and sign big and proud, because you have just learned how to draw your very own portrait of Judy Hops. It's called a rough sketch, sweetheart. All right, now in the end, did you all have fun?
Yeah.
Yes, that's the most important part about drawing, just really having fun here. But before we say goodbye, I'd love to see all of your amazing bunnies here today, so we're gonna have a quick little art show. On the count of three, let me all reach your boards high and proud, and take a moment to look around. All Judy, a little too like that. And so 1, 2, 3, Judy Hops, everyone is gonna look out here. Amazing work in my sketchbook. Nice big happy rabbits all around in the first 2 rows out here. Excellent job in the middle rows as well. Nice big expressive eyes, really tall ears. You guys definitely capture her like this out here. In the back row too, nice bold line work, super soft shading. And Judy Hops is definitely not an easy character to draw at all. You all did so great. So give yourselves a round of applause. As you all congratulate